Hey, this is Brad Allen. I'm the broker in charge of the Art of Real Estate, and we're looking forward to our upcoming appointment for you to go see some homes or discuss the home buying process. True to our culture, we don't like surprising people with paperwork, so we put together this video to give you an in depth definition of the buyer agency contract. If you will remember from our explanation from my video on South Carolina disclosure of real estate brokerage relationships, yeah, it's a lot. We can only show you our brokerage listings without having this form signed. So if you want to see homes listed by other brokerages, which most people do, we need to have this permission slip signed first. I'm sure there's some of you out there saying that other agents didn't make you sign something like this to see other agents' listings. I'm not saying they're breaking the law, but they were probably breaking the law because South Carolina law says that they have to have this form signed to take you into other listings, and that's just kind of what it is. And by signing this form, you're agreeing to be represented by the Art of Real Estate. So let's move on to my explanation of this form, and hopefully I will answer most of the questions you might have. If not, write them down and discuss them with the agent that you will be meeting. And oh, one last thing. I'm only giving you a brief synopsis of this form. So make sure that you read it in its entirety and make any questions you might have. So to move on real quick to section 1, appointment of broker. This is where you're agreeing to be represented by the Art of Real Estate and are allowing us to conduct all negotiations for the types of properties that you list below in section 2. And if you're in that, you're agreeing to keep us in the loop if you learn about information about properties, and if other parties reach out to you. So pretty much, if you know something or find out something, please share it with us as well. Section 2. This is where you tell us what you're looking for. I like to think of this as us being a waiter taking an order. If you'd like a three-bedroom house in downtown Columbia with two baths and a pool between $150,000 and $200,000, that gives us the parameters to do our jobs in finding you a house. Section 3 goes on to talking about broker duties and what our duties are to you. One, we have to explain buyer agency and the agency disclosure. So if you need to, refer back to the other video I talked about with the disclosure of real estate brokerage relationships. It also says that we have to use our professional knowledge and skill to represent you in a diligent and effective manner. So that's pretty cool. Two, if our brokerage is not representing the seller, then we only represent you. If our brokerage does represent the seller too, then the broker shall not disclose to the buyer any information obtained in confidence from the seller, nor can we disclose anything to the seller that would adversely affect, your negotiating standpoint. Four, the art of real estate may represent more than one buyer who may or may not be looking the same type of home or even the actual same home. It also says that any information obtained during this agreement and during this time frame is to remain confidential past this agreement's time frame. Five, that we are licensed real estate agents under the state of South Carolina, and that we will use our best efforts in locating a property as you described in Section 2 above and negotiate it. During the term of this contract, we will give you information about properties and properties that meet your standards. So now on to your duties. It's kind of a two-way street. One, that you will solely work with the Art of Real Estate during the term of this agreement. And you do that by only seeing properties with our agents and not agents from other companies. That you allow us to help find properties, negotiate properties, in essence representing you. The three, you agree again to refer all inquiries received from other brokers or licensees to us. That you also understand and hold us harmless as a result from any errors or misrepresentations the sellers have. And that you only hold us accountable for your earnest money if our company is holding it. If another company is holding it, per their terms, we're not liable for their actions regarding it. However, law is very strict on how earnest money is held. It also goes on to say you agree to help us by being an active participant in identifying and negotiating and purchasing property, meaning you will give us feedback and you will be available and active in the process. Some examples are by giving us reliable information. Don't hold anything back once we are a client agent relationship. And you really shouldn't fluff or lie about your finances. So we got to make sure that we're finding you stuff that you want. And you also make yourself available. It's going to be really hard for us to sell your home if you never make time to go look at them. You also have to tell us what you need and want, which you've probably already done if we've done section 2. So let's go on to the white elephant in the room, how we get paid. So there's 4 ways of compensation in real estate for a buyer's agent. We don't do retainer service or service fee very often. So I'm really going to focus on D, brokerage fee, because really that's the easiest part. It goes on to talk about that the broker shall attain payment for the brokerage fee out of the transaction. The broker shall be paid by the cooperating broker as stated in our multiple listing service, and the buyer shall not be responsible for paying buyer's brokerage fees. Now, please understand if it's not listed on our MLS, we're not guaranteed a payment. So if you go look at it for sale by owner, please allow us to talk to them first because most of the time we can get our fee worked into the term of the deal. Moving on to terms of agency. This really goes and talks about how long we're going to work together. So this can be any length of time. It's totally negotiable. It's going to be a discussion between you and the agent you're meeting. Now, we totally understand that some people don't want to just get into a lengthy contract with somebody they may not know or may not think they do a good job. So, again, it could be for a day, a week, a month, a year, however you want to do it. We find that oftentimes people want to do it for 3 to 6 months. And so we'll write those terms in the agency under number 6. Number 7 is it makes us talk about dual agency and designated agency. The first checkbox right here that you acknowledge receiving the different types of agency relationships definitions, and we gave you the residential sales disclosure brochure, which we've talked about several times in this video and the other video. Then it goes on to talk about dual agency. So the next 2 boxes right here talk about dual agency. You can choose one to not allow us to act as a dual agency. You won't consider it. And really what you're saying here is you don't want to see any of our company's listings. Now, if you check the box below it, initial the box below it, this one, permission to act as a dual agency may be considered at the time you're provided with information about the other party of the transaction. So the way I break this down is we're allowed to show you properties that we have listed, but if you want to make an offer on that property, you will know who the seller is and you will execute a separate written dual agency agreement, just like it says here. So you're not agreeing to buy it, but you're agreeing to be open to it. The next 2 boxes talks about designated agency, and designated agency is not an agency that we perform, so we're not going to worry about these 2. So feel free just to check the 4th box, and we can move on. Obviously, the government thinks it's a very important topic, so it makes us talk about other potential buyers again. And it goes on to say that we may represent buyers that have interest in the same property or looking for the same things, and that you're okay with that and you're allowing us to work with both people. Number 9 goes on to talk about indemnifying us, and that's kind of strong, but what it's really getting to is you're agreeing that you have not signed a buyer agency with another company and you've not been giving information or be shown property by that other company. If you have, that's fine, just let us know. There's some things that we might have to do. But if you tell us you haven't and you really have, and then we get in trouble, then you agree to step in and cover us for any kind of misrepresentations that you've brought us. Again, if we're all on the up and up, we're good to go. Number 10 talks about the disclosure of the buyer's identity and the confidentiality of it. So pretty much we have to disclose who you are to the seller. They're going to see it on the contract, and that's their right. However, if you think them seeing your name will be a detriment to your negotiating ability, like you're a celebrity, a pro athlete, or it could be just know them from life and they're going to treat you differently, then let us know. We can get you with an attorney that might be able to do something still legal but kind of hide your identity from them. Going on number 11, non-discrimination, I kind of break this down as the only color we see is green. So you can have whatever thoughts you want, just please keep them to yourself because we follow all local, state, and federal fair housing laws. 12 goes on to say that we're pretty much only being hired as real estate agents. We are not any other sort of professional. So please don't let us act that way and don't rely on us in that sense. So we're not attorneys or tax people, lenders, appraisers, or surveyors, engineers, inspectors, or any other professional service. What we are, we're quarterbacks. So if you have a question or there's a problem that comes up, we're going to get you to the people that can best answer your question, and that's those professionals. The mediation clause is in here saying that if anything comes up during this transaction against us, your agents, or the other agent, or the seller, or anybody, that you agree to go to mediation and follow the procedures of the National Association of Realtors dispute resolution system. If you don't like what comes out of that, you can definitely sue whoever you want. Number 14 is sex register information. We don't follow this, and we're not responsible for finding out or disclosing it to you. However, it goes on to say that they recommend the buyer understands that the sex register offender registry information may be obtained from the local sheriff's department. 15 goes on to talk about this entire contract's binding. So if you're like, I'm only buying a house that's pink, and that's the only ones you're allowed to show us, then we need to write it down here in section 16. If you don't have something like that, it's totally fine. Most people don't, but it's not enforceable if it's not in the contract. 17 goes on to talk about that we're allowed to fax and email documents these days. No longer do we have to hand deliver originals. And by emailing or faxing it, those can be deemed original contracts. And any kind of handwritten or typewritten modifications going forward and that are agreed to by both parties will become hard and part of the actual contract. And then the fourth page follows up with just letting you know that this is a legally binding agreement and that if you have any questions about it, we recommend you go seek legal counsel. You also will acknowledge that you're going to get a copy of this agreement once we are done with it. So, and lastly, we need you to put every single phone, email, and fax number that we're allowed to communicate with you at. So if you only put your cell phone, that's the only number we're allowed to call you. So if you're okay with you calling at you at the office, please feel free to write that down as well. And then lastly, we're going to need your address just so we know how to send you documents and such. So at the end of the day, we appreciate your time in allowing us to show you this form and go over it on this video. If you have any questions, please make sure to ask your agent when you're meeting. We also hope at the end of the meeting you decide to become a client of the Art of Real Estate so we can show you how the buying process can be a pleasurable, happy experience. In the meantime, happy hunting and good luck.